There's a moment in every connection when something shifts, not with thunder, not with a storm, but with a silence so soft you almost miss it. And yet that silence says everything. When someone begins to lose love for you, it rarely happens all at once. It doesn't shout, it doesn't slam doors, it whispers, in the pauses, in the lack of eye contact, in the changed rhythm of daily moments. Most people think love ends with an argument, a confession, or a farewell. But in truth, love begins to fade in much smaller ways, subtle signs that speak volumes if you're quiet enough to hear them. Before the goodbye, before the explanation, there are always two things that happen first, and if you notice them, really notice them, you'll realize love doesn't leave overnight. It simply stops showing up the way it used to. Change in energy before change in words. Love, when it's alive, has its own energy. You feel it before it's spoken. It's not just in grand gestures or poetic words. It's in the way someone leans in when you speak, the way their eyes hold yours just a little longer, the way their laughter finds its rhythm in your presence. It's subtle, yet unmistakable. Love has a frequency, and when two people are in tune, that energy hums between them effortlessly. But when love begins to slip away, the first shift is not verbal, it's energetic. The air changes before the words do. You might notice it during moments that used to feel warm but now feel cooler. You're telling a story, and where there used to be animated reactions, now there's a slight nod, maybe a glance at the phone. They're listening, but they're not there. They're physically present, but emotionally they've already stepped back. That distance, barely visible, yet deeply felt, is the first sign. It doesn't come with drama or declarations. It comes with a slight withdrawal, a pulling back of presence. The texts still arrive, but they feel mechanical. The calls still happen, but they feel obligatory. They still say, "I love you," but it lands differently. Like an echo, not a truth. You might question yourself at first. Maybe you're overthinking. Maybe they're just tired. You try to justify the change because love teaches us to give the benefit of the doubt. But deep down your instincts whisper, something's different. And it is. What's changed is the energy, the invisible thread that once tied your hearts together with ease. That thread is now strained, not broken yet, but no longer effortlessly flowing. Think about how we behave when we're excited about someone. We lean in, we ask questions, we remember details, we laugh more easily, we linger. Our time feels brighter in their presence. When love begins to fade, the exact opposite happens. Attention becomes divided, engagement dulls, and shared moments feel heavier instead of lighter. And still, not a word is said. Because most people don't say, "I'm starting to fall out of love." Instead, they begin to show it in what they stop doing. They stop reaching out first. They stop asking how you're really doing. They stop noticing the small things, your silence, your tired eyes, your nervous habits. They're there, but they're not with you. This is what makes the first stage of lost love so painful. It's invisible. There's no fight, no closure, just a shift in energy that leaves you wondering if you imagined the whole thing. The most heartbreaking part? We often respond to this shift by trying harder. We increase our efforts, trying to recapture the warmth we remember. We send longer messages, plan thoughtful moments, give more love, hoping they'll meet us there again. But if their energy has already turned inward, your efforts might go unnoticed. Or worse, feel like pressure to someone who's emotionally stepping back. It's like trying to dance with someone who's no longer listening to the music. And yet recognizing this shift doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning of an honest conversation if both people are willing, but that requires presence. It requires someone to meet you in the silence and say, "I feel it too. Let's talk." Sadly, that rarely happens. More often we're left to grieve a love that hasn't officially ended, but is no longer alive in the way it used to be. And the worst part is pretending not to notice, acting like everything's normal when the connection has already begun to dissolve. So if you're in that space right now, where things look the same on the outside but feel different on the inside, trust that feeling. Trust the wisdom in your body, in your spirit. It knows when someone has begun to pull away, even before your mind can fully accept it. Love is not only in words, it's in presence. It's in the energy exchanged, in a look, in a touch, in a moment of stillness where both people feel safe. When that energy shifts, when it dims, dulls, or disappears, it's not your imagination. It's the quiet beginning of something deeper unraveling. Noticing it doesn't mean giving up, but it does mean acknowledging reality, because healing starts with truth. And the truth is, before anyone says they're falling out of love, they stop showing up the way they once did. Their presence becomes softer, their attention more fleeting, their warmth less consistent. So if you feel that shift, pause. Don't beg, don't chase, and don't silence your intuition. Just pause and listen to the silence between the words. It will tell you everything you need to know. The disconnection in the eyes. They say the eyes never lie. They hold stories words cannot tell, feelings too complex to articulate. When someone loves you, their eyes often give it away before anything else does. There's a warmth, a presence, an unspoken dialogue that happens with just one glance. It's in the way they look at you during quiet moments, in how they hold your gaze when you're speaking, in the way their eyes soften even when you say something silly or mundane. But when love begins to fade, that connection, the one that used to exist wordlessly in their eyes, starts to vanish. And it happens so quietly that at first you might think you're imagining it. You might look at them across the table and feel something missing. You see the same person, the same familiar features, but the look that used to say, "I see you," is no longer there. This is often one of the first emotional truths we experience when someone's love starts to withdraw. Their eyes begin to avoid you, or worse, look at you like a stranger. The gaze that once anchored you now drifts. It no longer lingers. It doesn't light up when you walk into the room. There's no sparkle, no warmth, no silent joy. And it hurts, because no one tells you how painful it is to be looked at without being seen. This shift is deeply unsettling, because eyes, for all their simplicity, are our most vulnerable point of connection. We can fake words, we can mimic affection, but we can't replicate genuine presence. And the eyes, they give us away every time. When someone loves you, their eyes pull you in. They search your face even when you're not speaking. They notice the small things, the way your brows furrow when you're anxious, the way your smile curves differently when you're truly happy. They don't look through you, they look into you. That's how intimacy grows, not just through touch or time, but through the act of being truly seen. But when the connection weakens, the eyes are the first to retreat. They begin to avoid long contact. Conversations are punctuated with quick glances at a phone, a TV, or anywhere else. They don't rest on your face like they used to. And when they do, there's a kind of absence behind them, like they're there, but already somewhere else. This is not about blame. It's not even always intentional. Sometimes love fades gently, without resentment or betrayal. People change, grow apart, fall out of rhythm. But what makes this so difficult is that the person is still physically present. They still sit across from you, still share a space, maybe even a life. But the emotional intimacy that once lived in their eyes is gone, and you feel it deeply. You might try to revive it, make more eye contact, initiate meaningful conversations, share something vulnerable. But if their heart has already started to close, you'll find their gaze doesn't meet yours the same way. There's a hesitation, a distance. Sometimes it even feels guarded, like they're protecting themselves from a truth they're not ready to say aloud. It's one of the loneliest feelings, to be next to someone who once knew your soul and now only sees your surface. And yet we often hold on, because love is not just about how we feel, it's about how we remember feeling. We chase the memory of what those eyes once meant. We hope that maybe it's just stress or a bad day or a passing mood. We rationalize the shift in gaze, convincing ourselves it's temporary. But deep down you already know. Because we don't just fall in love through words, we fall in love through being seen. Through the moments when someone looks at us with unfiltered affection, quiet understanding and unwavering presence. When that stops, a vital piece of the relationship begins to fade. Still, it's not about despair, it's about awareness. Because when you recognize this disconnection in the eyes, you're being invited to face a truth. Something needs to change. It might mean having a difficult conversation. It might mean letting go. Or in some cases, it might be the wake-up call needed to rekindle what's been lost, if both hearts are willing. But you can't move forward if you're still pretending nothing has changed. You deserve to be looked at with eyes that see you, fully, kindly, presently. You deserve to feel safe in someone's gaze, to know that when they look at you, they're not just observing, they're connecting. So if you've been feeling that quiet ache, the one that comes when someone's eyes feel colder than they used to, don't ignore it. It's not a weakness to notice. It's not wrong to feel hurt. It's simply the heart recognizing that the energy once shared is no longer being returned in the same way. We often think love ends in loud arguments or dramatic exits, but more often it ends with small absences, one of the first being the disappearance of that spark in someone's eyes. And while that may be painful, it's also clarifying, because it reminds you that love isn't just about being with someone. It's about being seen by them, again and again. When the eyes stop seeing, love begins to slip into memory. And you deserve more than to become someone's memory while you're still standing right in front of them. Routine becomes obligation. In the beginning, love dances in the smallest details. It's in the way someone texts you good morning without fail. Not because they have to, but because they want to. It's in the way they ask if you got home safely, or how they remember your coffee order without needing to ask. These are not grand romantic gestures. They are daily choices, little rituals that say, I'm thinking of you, even when you're not around. But as love begins to fade, those once joyful routines begin to lose their meaning. What was once an offering becomes an obligation. What once came from the heart now comes from habit, or worse, from guilt. They still reply to your messages, but the tone is flat. They still show up for dinner, but the energy feels drained. They still ask about your day, but their mind is somewhere else. The motions continue, but the emotion is gone. This change is slow. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's why it hurts in a very particular way, because the surface still looks intact. The structure of the relationship appears the same routines, the same patterns, the same shared space. But underneath, something has shifted. You feel it when you laugh at something and they don't look up. You feel it when your excitement meets their apathy. You feel it when your shared rituals, those things that once made your connection feel alive, begin to feel more like duties on a checklist than expressions of love. It's subtle, but it's there. You ask them how they are, and they say, "I'm fine," but you can tell they're distracted. You try to initiate plans, and they respond with a hesitant, "Maybe, I'll let you know." You offer affection, and they receive it like a task to be acknowledged, not a feeling to be shared. This shift from joy to job is one of the most telling signs that love is no longer growing. When people love each other deeply, routines don't feel like obligations, they feel like sacred parts of the connection. A simple take care holds weight. A shared joke feels like a private universe. But when that emotional current fades, those same actions start to feel hollow. They lose their sparkle. And you begin to notice. You notice when they forget the small things they used to remember without fail. You notice when the shared playlist hasn't been updated in months. You notice when they no longer ask about that work project you were nervous about, or how your friend's health is. These might seem like small slips, but they are the signs of emotional disengagement. What makes this stage so difficult is that nothing technically is wrong. They're not angry, they're not cruel, they are still there, but they're not fully present. And you begin to feel like a character in a story they no longer want to write. You might even find yourself overcompensating, trying to add excitement back into your routines, suggesting surprises, initiating connection. But often it's met with polite tolerance instead of the enthusiasm you remember. You're not being unreasonable for noticing the shift. Love at its healthiest is active, it's intentional, it's alive. And while routines are a natural and necessary part of any long-term relationship, the spirit behind them is what keeps the bond strong. When love begins to fade, those shared rhythms start to feel like routines to be maintained, rather than moments to be cherished. The truth is, no one can sustain emotional investment in a relationship without genuine presence. When someone begins to lose that investment, they may keep doing the same things, but they stop feeling the same way while doing them. And that absence of feeling is what breaks your heart, because you remember how it used to be. You remember when they would call just to hear your voice, when "I miss you" wasn't just a phrase, it was a feeling they couldn't hide. You remember how the smallest interaction carried meaning, and now everything feels muted. And yet you stay, because leaving something that still looks familiar, even if it feels empty, is incredibly hard. Especially when they're not treating you badly, they're just not treating you like they used to. But here's something important. Love should never be sustained out of obligation. You should never be the box someone checks off at the end of their day. You should be someone they choose, not just out of habit, but out of love. You deserve the kind of love that doesn't just show up. You deserve the kind that wants to be there. So if you've been feeling like the routines in your relationship have become hollow, if you've been sensing that what used to be heartfelt has turned into just what we do, pause. Ask yourself what kind of connection you truly want. And ask whether the current rhythm you're in is still playing the music of love or just echoing its memory. It takes courage to confront that question, because sometimes the answer means letting go of something that once meant everything to you. But more often, it opens the door to a deeper truth, a chance to have a real conversation, to either rediscover the spark or acknowledge the fading. Either way, you deserve clarity. And above all, you deserve a love that doesn't just remember your birthday or ask about your day out of routine, but one that genuinely wants to celebrate your existence every day. Because when someone truly loves you, routine never feels like a responsibility. It feels like a privilege. Emotional availability shrinks. One of the clearest signs that love is changing or fading is not something loudly expressed, but something quietly withheld. It's not in what they say, but in what they no longer offer. Emotional presence. The ability to sit with you in your highs and lows, to witness your vulnerability without turning away, to truly care about the world inside you. When someone starts to lose love for you, one of the earliest things they withdraw is their emotional availability. At first, it may feel like nothing major. You mention a difficult day, and instead of the warm, attentive listening you're used to, you get a quick, "I'm sure it'll work out." You share something personal, and they change the subject. You're quiet for longer than usual, hoping they'll ask if something's wrong, and they don't. That space where connection used to live begins to feel empty. When people are emotionally available, they don't just hear your words, they sense your silences. They lean in when you seem distant. They ask questions not to interrogate, but to understand. They sit with you in discomfort without trying to rush you out of it. But when that emotional openness starts to shrink, so does the feeling of safety in the relationship. You begin to feel like you can't bring your full self to the conversation. You hesitate before speaking honestly. You catch yourself editing your emotions, minimizing them, reshaping them, just to avoid being met with apathy or discomfort. Slowly, you stop sharing the deeper parts of your day. You stop expecting comfort. You stop reaching out, because reaching out now feels like an inconvenience to them. And that is its own kind of heartbreak. You start to realize that conversations are becoming more superficial. They talk about work, schedules, errands, maybe even joke around, but the depth is gone. You could be sitting across from each other for hours and still feel like you're miles apart. The person who used to feel like home now feels more like a guest, polite, present, but distant. One of the most painful parts of this emotional disconnection is the loneliness it creates, because it's not the kind of loneliness that comes from being physically alone. It's the kind that happens in the presence of someone who once knew your soul and now no longer seems interested in visiting. And the worst part is how normalized it can become. You start to convince yourself that maybe you're just asking for too much, that people grow, that things settle, that this is just what long-term relationships are supposed to look like. But in your heart, you know the difference. You know what it felt like when they were emotionally with you, when you could talk about your fears, your dreams, your thoughts in the middle of the night, and they would hold space for all of it. You know what it was like when your emotional world felt safe in their hands. Now it feels like your emotions have become a burden, something to be managed rather than embraced. And it's not always intentional. Sometimes people pull away emotionally because they're confused about their own feelings. They don't know how to navigate their internal conflict, so they shut down. They become quieter, colder, not out of cruelty but out of uncertainty. Still, the result is the same. The connection begins to fade. You try to bring them back in. You share something meaningful, hoping it will spark the old intimacy. Sometimes they respond, briefly, but it feels more like a flicker than a flame. Other times they shut it down, offering quick reassurance or changing the subject. Over time, you learn to protect yourself by sharing less. And love, real love, cannot survive in that space. Because love doesn't just require presence, it requires emotional presence, the willingness to listen, to hold space, to care, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. When someone is emotionally available, they don't need to be perfect. They just need to be there, with their full attention, their heart open, their curiosity intact. But when that presence disappears, you feel it in your bones. You might try to fix it, to talk about it, to ask for more. But if someone has already checked out emotionally, those conversations may feel one-sided, like you're trying to build a bridge alone while they're standing at the other side, unsure if they even want to cross. And here's a difficult truth. You cannot make someone emotionally available if they are not willing to be. You can't teach someone to care in the way you need to be cared for. You can't force someone to feel something that has quietly slipped away. And most importantly, you cannot shrink yourself to keep the illusion of connection alive. What you can do is honor what you feel. If you feel that absence, if you sense that your emotional world is no longer being met with curiosity, love, or presence, believe it. Don't ignore it. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking it's all in your head. Emotional availability is not a luxury in a relationship, it's the foundation. Without it, love becomes performance, a shell, a memory acted out by two people who once meant the world to each other, now slowly becoming strangers. So if you find yourself constantly craving deeper connection, constantly hoping for the return of someone's emotional warmth, take a moment. Ask yourself, are they truly with me, or are they just beside me? Because you deserve to be with someone who doesn't just show up, but feels with you, who listens when you're quiet, who cares when you're overwhelmed, who holds your emotions as gently as they would hold your hand. When someone begins to lose love for you, emotional withdrawal often precedes everything else. But recognizing it isn't just about preparing for an ending, it's about reclaiming your need to be seen, heard, and held. Because your heart is not too much, and your emotions are not a burden. They're simply looking for a place to belong. They stop making future plans with you. One of the quietest signs that someone's love is fading is not found in an argument or a dramatic exit, but in the subtle absence of future plans. When love is alive, the future becomes a shared vision. People talk about the weekend, the summer, next year, or even decades ahead. And they don't just include you, they imagine their future with you. But when love begins to slip away, so does the desire to plan a future together. It often starts subtly. They stop bringing up vacations. They no longer ask about your availability next month. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, things that were once thoughtfully discussed now go unmentioned. Conversations that used to include hopes, dreams, and shared goals now revolve around what's right in front of them, what's convenient, what's easy. At first, it may seem like life is just busy. They're tired, stressed, caught up in work, and maybe that's true. But over time, you start to notice a pattern. When you mention something in the future, their responses grow vague. You get a maybe, or we'll see, or even a change of subject. They seem less interested in committing to plans and more comfortable floating in the uncertainty. That change might not be loud, but it's incredibly telling. Because planning with someone is not just about calendars and logistics. It's about investment. When someone loves you, they want to include you in their time, not just their present, but their future. They want to imagine possibilities with you. Even if they're not planners by nature, they still want to know you'll be part of what's ahead. So when that desire fades, when the vision begins to blur, it often means the emotional connection is no longer strong enough to sustain that shared future. You might find yourself being the only one suggesting things. Should we try that restaurant next week? Want to go away for the weekend next month? We should book tickets for the show before it sells out. And while these seem like small things, over time they start to feel heavier. You begin to feel like you're carrying the relationship forward alone, like you're making all the effort to keep it moving while they just follow passively, or not at all. Eventually you stop suggesting, you stop asking, you grow quiet, waiting to see if they will take the initiative, if they will say, let's do this, or I've been thinking about us. And when they don't, a different kind of silence enters the relationship, one filled with unspoken questions. Do they still see me in their life? Are they still dreaming with me? Do they even want to? These questions may never be asked out loud, but they echo in your heart, because deep down you already feel the answer. Love is no longer growing. It's no longer stretching forward. It's slowly becoming something that lives in the past, or in the now, but not in the future. And it hurts. Not because they left, not because of a fight, but because they quietly stopped reaching forward to meet you in the days ahead. You may try to hold on. You may tell yourself that this is a phase, that people drift and reconnect, that things will get better once they're less busy, less stressed, more themselves. But again, love tells its truth, not in sudden changes, but in subtle absences. When someone is losing love, they start living only in the moment with you, not for the moment, but stuck in it. They stop weaving you into their tomorrow. And when you stop being part of someone's future, you slowly start to disappear from their present too. That's how emotional endings often begin. It's not always about the absence of love. Sometimes it's about the absence of intention, of vision, of the willingness to imagine and create with someone. Because real love doesn't just look backwards at the good times, it looks forward with hope. You deserve a love that wants to plan with you, not just trips and dinners, but a life, a shared direction, someone who includes you in their tomorrow without hesitation, someone who doesn't flinch when you say, "Where do you see us in a year?" Someone who brings you into their dreams, not because it's expected, but because they can't imagine them without you. If you find yourself being the only one looking ahead while they're avoiding eye contact with the future, honor what that means. You're not being too much for wanting inclusion. You're not being needy for desiring clarity. You're simply tuned in to what matters. Mutuality. And a mutual love includes you. It doesn't treat you like a seasonal chapter. It doesn't keep you on pause. It builds, it grows, it expands. So if the person you're with no longer makes space for you in their future, pay attention. That may be the most honest thing they're telling you, even if they never say a word. You deserve a love that makes plans with you, that doesn't hesitate to say, I want to be there and I want you there too. Because the future isn't just something we walk into. It's something we choose together.